when he died, his favorite wife would be killed and buried with him to go to the afterlife. Which I was just like, that is crazy. And I was imagining scenes where people were kicking down doors and were like, this man's dead.
Yeah.
Who was his favorite wife? And then they'll be like, it wasn't me. He loved her. He loved her.
In which a volunteer would have 3 people throw spears at them. If they survived, they had bad spirits. But if they died, they achieved immortality.
Okay, so if they died, they achieved immortality. This feels like a prank that you play on like a 7-year-old, you know? It's just... Today we're answering the question, were the Thracians barbarians as the Greeks described them to be? We'll also be talking about what life was like as the average Thracian and whether you would actually want to live there on our would you want to live there tier list at the very end. But before we start, it's apology time. That's right. We're 13 episodes in and it's time for our first apology and unlikely to be our last. In the last episode, we made a mistake of talking about ethnicity and genetics when it came to the Balkans, basically. We talked about Bulgarians and the fact that I wanted to describe where Thrace was. So I said it's like ancient Bulgaria area. I didn't realize how contested it was. And frankly, I didn't realize how important it was. I was just trying to talk about the Thracians. I made a mistake. I talked about the Balkans. So from now on, we have a new rule on the channel. We're never ever talking about genetics and ethnicity in the Balkans ever again. You agreed, Rob?
Yeah, that's fine by me. Okay, so getting into that now, the Thracian society was divided into kind of distinct classes. Like, quite common for this period, you'd say kings, nobles, warriors, farmers, and artisans forming like kind of the backbone of their civilization. To be honest, pretty much similar to most of the world, I would describe it as. And not unusually for the time, warriors were highly respected in their society. I mean, you think about this, they're still, you consider them warrior tribes. That is the backbone of them. So you'd say that is one of the most respected class, obviously apart from the nobles and the kings. It kind of goes kings, nobles, and then the warriors below that.
Can I interject to talk a little bit about tribes? Because if I'm honest, at the very beginning, I was like, tribes? Like, I think of like kind of Stone Agey stuff or like hunter-gatherers, nomads. So I was a bit confused because I also saw some stuff, and I mentioned in the last episode that elites and stuff, I think I did anyway, that they live in fortresses, like whereas the others kind of lived around the fortress and stuff. And I was like, how does that make sense? How do these got fortresses if they're hunter-gatherers moving around? Turns out that's not the case. So tribes can be... being tribal is more than just about throwing sticks and hunting deer and stuff like that. Being tribal is about your societal structure. So a state has laws and bureaucracy and taxes and a ruler who governs a defined territory. Whereas a tribe is loosely organized. Power comes from family ties, local chieftains, and just that kind of mutual loyalty. You know, it's more casual about it. So it's
To put a modern flair on it is, I know when with a lot of African countries, they're still kind of like, it's not in the same way where it's not a tribal rule, but there's a lot of people where it's like what tribe you are kind of determines kind of like things that happen in society where you quite often, and I think it's a lot of places where they go, people marry within their same tribe or that sort of thing, even though it's not tribal. It's still that kind of tribe where it's like almost, again, not that we wouldn't say we would talk about, it's almost ethnicity again.
No, the ethnicity in the Balkans is bad. Ethnicity everywhere else is okay, but they are not jokers when it comes to this stuff, and it's you don't want to go down that road.
But so let's talk a bit more about the warrior class then, like that were high respected. So we kind of talked a little bit about them in the last episode, but we didn't go into much detail, I'd say. So they excelled in guerrilla warfare. They often used javelins to harass their enemies from a distance, alongside obviously we talked about the run fire in the last episode. So if you want to hear more about their massive sword, go back and listen to our last episode. Really great after you finish this one.
Very cool stuff. After you finish, and like this one, and subscribe if you haven't
like this one. Yeah.
And leave a comment. Thank you.
So they would have done a lot of raiding of their neighbors and probably each other when they weren't unified in the Odrysian Empire, because there's no clear kind of like that this wouldn't have happened, and they could have been. I mean, again, it's tribal. There would have been feuds between each other. It was only the Odrysian Empire where they kind of formed that unity, and almost where it was like you had common enemies outside that you could gathered together to fight against, which has allowed that to happen.
Confederation of tribes, isn't it? I think is the word we used last time.
Yeah.
The Odrysian kingdom was effectively one tribe unifying the tribes, but they still had a bit of autonomy there, and there was obviously always going to be tension and conflict about who's in charge and what decisions they're making.
Yeah, and they were also excellent horsemen, and Thracian cavalry were used by Athens and Sparta most commonly. I think other people as well, but they're the most common people to use them as mercenaries.
Okay, yes.
And it was interesting. It was the cavalrymen specifically, because I think quite often locally they were fought more as on foot, because actually, again, we talk about the rugged terrain around a lot of the region, which made it harder for horsemen to be as effective. But when they obviously went to fight elsewhere, it was a lot more effective when they come down from the mountains more.
I heard they might have picked up. I think I remember encountering. They might have picked up a lot of their horse like traditions from the Scythians as well.
Yes,
the Scythian
exactly,
horse lords.
exactly. Well, they are this kind of melting pot of the surrounding. We talked about in the last episode. They are really this melting pot of everything that comes around them.
Absolutely.
So that's a bit about the warriors. But again, like most societies, though, the most common caste was farmers, and in this case, actually a lot of herders.
Okay.
So that was the kind of the backbone of society.
All right. On to me.
So tell us a bit more about what they eat.
Okay. Yeah, I'm actually my topic is economy and daily life, and I've just
you didn't go to what they
actually kind of depends how you do, a little bit.
Okay.
The last few times I've done that with the other civs. This time I thought I'm just going to pick out the highlights here, and for daily life. Sorry, what do you want to say?
I guess it'll be actually almost before we would have known so much more about. I guess is it actually less known about what they ate?
It's just not interesting, bro. It's just not interesting.
Oh, is it not? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's just it's like grain and stuff like that. Yeah,
I was about to say it's the classic of grain. Grains like, because obviously it's interesting with rice in the east and the grain in the west. It's the
Well, I also like to mix it up from episode to episode, and for daily life, my highlight is wine. So that's why I say technically it's what you're eating.
Oh, yeah.
Their wine culture is huge. These guys loved getting hammered. They loved getting drunk. They loved getting smashed, sloshed, intoxicated, mullered, chalked. I think I've heard someone say once. There's a lot of words for
party,
it.
like a Thracian party.
Yeah. So basically a night out in Manchester. And these lot were known for drinking wine undiluted. Now, if you're wondering what do you mean diluted, if you're unaware, in the ancient times, wines were really, really concentrated. They were thick and syrupy, which is why the Greeks and the Romans, they would water it down in order for it to actually be like wine.
Because I heard it wasn't actually like wine technique wasn't mastered until like way later than this. It was like obviously it was drunk a lot, but it wasn't actually supposed to be as nice as kind of the more modern equivalents. I think it was actually I think, again, actually no, I'm not going to say it because I don't think I know it right. I was going to say I think it's monasteries that kind of mastered it, but I might be wrong about that.
I don't know. I didn't encounter that. I've actually heard that before. No. I've heard that before as well. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. So we're not talking rosé here, right? We're talking like
it's almost like a spirit is what I'm imagining here. It's more almost like a liquor.
Yeah. I mean, it's like taking
great liquor.
So it's like drinking absinthe straight. These Thracians were doing, yeah. So they were drinking their wine, like as I said, undiluted. And the Greeks, they saw this as like barbaric, barbaric excess. And again, we come back to this question, like, were they barbarians? I feel like your section maybe big them up to be maybe a little bit more than that. My section is going to bring them back down. Maybe potentially. I don't know. We'll see. So the Thracians, it's interesting because getting drunk for them, it wasn't just for fun. It was, interestingly, it had like a sort of sacred connection. And it was a means to commune with the god Dionysus. I think, did I say that correctly? I'm not sure. But it's the Greek god of wine, which the Thracians also had as a god. They just didn't call it Dionysus. I think they call it like Zagreus or something like that. They have different names for them. But because, as you said, the melting pot of cultures, and they're all these cultures right next to each other, there's a lot of mixing, including with the gods. So drinking was like a way of like connecting with the gods for these lot. And they went hard. Like, they went hard. And so elites would feast out of. So they would also eat, and they would feast out of golden like vessels and pure gold, pure silver that would be passed around.
They had so much gold from what it seems to be. Whenever I looked up, there was a lot of gold rolling out that region.
Absolutely, and so the wine. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the wine was also an art and a ceremony, as well as just getting smashed. Or maybe that was just their excuse. We don't know.
I mean, when it's back when you always think goes, what are you going to do? Like, you understand why like all these like old English kings why they're drunk all the time. It's like, what else is there to do? Just get drunk.
Yeah, exactly. So I said I was going to talk about economy and daily life. So in terms of economy, my highlight is trade with the Greeks and the idea that they exported their grain, they exported livestock, timber, and slaves, because all these regions had slaves back then, for most of history, to be honest. And in return, they imported from the Greeks luxury goods. So this kind of they would take these ornaments and stuff like that, these kind of higher caliber drinking and eating vessels, whatever. But they wouldn't just keep them as Greek and Hellenic. They would be blended with their own native traditions. So they would be like Thracianized. And so Greek pottery and jewelry has been found in Thracian burials, but they've been reinterpreted distinctly with Thracian aesthetics. So we're talking wild animals, spirals, warrior motifs. And this is in contrast to the way the Greeks like to do things, which was more sort of human-based. They like to have humans on their things, so whereas the Thracians preferred that kind of that raw animal vibes.
Now that also lines up with what we were seeing in the previous one. We saw that gold, all that kind of gold treasures, and there was a lot of them, these like goats' heads or that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Although some of that I also saw afterwards, there was also kind of the connection with the Persians as well, because they would drink out that kind of stuff. But again, they Thracianized it, right? They took it and they made it their own versions, which is really interesting. So all of this trade allowed for the elites to grow wealthy, and I suppose that's also part of the gold, the gold story. I will pass on to you. I've touched on sacred stuff a couple times now, but I'll pass on to you now to talk about religion.
A lot of the information actually for this bit comes almost like centuries afterwards. Specifically, and again, this is a lot of stuff comes from Herodotus, and a lot of people say this is the first historian. So when we said last episode, you're like the Greeks are the first historians. This guy is actually meant to be the first historian. So there you go.
Is it Herodotus? Maybe
Herodotus.
Herodotus. That's how it's pronounced. Yeah. Go on.
Right. Yeah, Herodotus. He also a geographer as well, apparently.
Yeah, you got. Well, people did everything back then, though. Like the further back in time you have, it's like, oh, I'm a master of, I am an inventor, I'm a physicist, I'm a geographer.
But to be fair, I think you just make a few drawings of some maps. I'm a geographer now.
Well, back
he just sits.
It probably wasn't easy. It probably wasn't easy.
Yeah. All right, so I'm actually going to start with one of his quotes. They worship only these gods: Ares, Dionysos, and Artemis. But their kings, in contrast to the rest of their countrymen, worship Hermes above all gods and swear only by him, saying they are descended from Hermes.
Okay, and I guess they had their own names for all these Greek gods as well. Then,
so exactly, so he was kind of like Herodotus was explaining Thracian gods using Greek equivalent, because you can understand it, because if he's writing a book on it to other Greeks, he's not going to say they have Bendis. He's going to write they have Ares, Dionysos, because they understand it.
Makes sense.
But it was interesting as well that they actually don't just have these gods. These are just he just seemed to this is the ones that he mentioned. And I kind of say I will also say kind of Greek and Thracian religious. But what I found is they're kind of almost like cousins, almost like religious cousins. They are so, because again, the culture is so intertwined that there is almost this kind of overlap between it. There are some temples which were to Greek gods and Thracian gods, and
there's so much contact. How could they not be? We sometimes when we think about these cultures in the past, we imagine them as like singular entities, but there is constant contact and constant trade. People coming back and forth, and so it's only natural that ideas would be shared as well, and amongst those ideas would be myths and religions.
Another Thracian god I want to talk about is Heros Karabasmos, who is often depicted as a Thracian rider.
Okay.
And some later evidence suggests that Heros Karabasmos and Apollo may have been kind of assimilated with each other, kind of, again, illustrating how the Greeks and Thracian deities shared spaces and presumably worshippers as well. So they kind of, again, this massive overlap between them. I want to talk about one more god.
Okay.
And that they worship, called Pleistoros, who's the god of war.
Okay, that's always the coolest one.
Yeah. And if it's out there, I'm finding it. And the Thracians would perform human sacrifices to him.
Of course, of course. But maybe less detail this time. If you want detail, go check out the Aztecs video. He went in hard on
To be
those
honest,
ones.
we don't know actually a huge amount of detail. We don't truly even know their reasoning behind the performing the human sacrifices to him. We just have archaeological evidence to support it happening. We know specifically that some Persians were sacrificed, but we
I
don't
think
truly
we're
know.
kind of going back towards that kind of barbarian vibe now. I think we're going back
Yeah,
down towards.
all right.
Yeah.
I'm going to go deeper into the barbarian vibe now.
Okay, go on.
They have actually there is they have so there's some theories now that there is an immortality cult that they had, and
Okay.
that's basically there was one ritual. This is mad, by the way,
Okay.
in which a volunteer would have three people throw spears at them. If they survived, they had bad spirits, but if they died, they achieved immortality.
Okay, that's so if they died, they achieved immortality. This feels like
Yep.
a prank that you play on like a 7-year-old, you know? It's just okay. Cool. I'll take my bad spirits, thank you very much.
All right, so I have another Herodotus quote for you. So, those who dwell above the Crestonians have yet other practices. Each man has many wives, and at his
I
death
know this one.
there's, there is both great rivalry among his wives and eager contention on their friends' parts to prove which wife was best loved by her husband. She to whom the honor is adjudged is praised by the men and women alike, and is slain over the tomb by her nearest of kin. By the way, also by her nearest of kin.
I didn't
Like
know
this,
that bit. Sorry, to summarize that, right? Correct
the,
me if I'm.
the quote's not finished, by the way.
Oh, no, so please go.
After the slaying, she is buried with the husband. The rest of the wives are greatly displeased by this, believing themselves to be deeply dishonored. Among the rest of the Thracians, it is custom to sell their children for export and take no care of their maidens, allowing them to have intercourse with any man they wish. Their wives, however, they strictly guard and buy them from a price from their parents.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so I said that I'd actually heard of this because when we were planning the very earliest episodes, I encountered this fact and I was like, that is so funny. But I didn't actually encounter that level of detail. What I heard
Mm.
was that when a Thracian man could have many wives, and
Yep.
when his
Well, it's
when
nobles specifically. It's nobles who have many wives.
it's always
It's
always the way, isn't it? It's always the way.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
So there's so many parallels. The more we go carry on with this show, the more we're seeing similarities across humanity. But anyway, so when he died, his favorite wife would be killed and buried with him to go to the afterlife, which I was just like, that is crazy. And I was imagining scenes where people were kicking down doors and were like, this man's dead.
Yeah.
Who was his favorite wife? And then they'll be like, it wasn't me. He loved her. I swear he loved her. But you're telling me that it's actually the opposite of that. These women were
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
me, please, me.
Her friends are all going, please choose her. But again, it also might link back to the immortality element where they go, because again, that's part of this Hermes that them thinking they're descendants from Hermes. They believe that they will be immortal after death.
That's crazy, dude. Because I was thinking for like the tier list segment later, I was like, that is terrible. Like that is really not great. And you know, yeah. But now I'm thinking, but maybe they like it, so it's okay. I don't know. Can we judge?
Or,
I don't
or,
know.
or is it that element sometimes where it is where you go, you almost have to put on that show, and if you don't, you almost end like, will it be worse outcomes if you are not picked and you don't do you don't put the right emotions into it? Would you be shunned by the rest of the tribe?
Yeah. Do you think
Would
it's? Do you
that?
think it's? Do you think they're faking it? Do you think they're faking it?
I mean, there's a chance. We have
Yeah.
no idea.
Yeah.
We have no idea.
They're dropping on their knees, crying and begging, saying "me, me,"
Yeah.
but in their head they're going, "Not,
No,
not,
no.
not me." Yeah. Man, that is just barbaric. You could say that's barbaric.
Yeah, we lead on and goes, are they not? I mean, this is putting again though. This is Herodotus's words, and it's not.
It's all we got though.
Does
It's
he
all
have
we got.
exactly, and we have to just assume that he was entirely correct because we have nothing to disprove it. And again, we have evidence. We have archaeological evidence of this stuff happening.
Yeah.
So
It's definitely not like completely fabricated. How much often it happened, maybe you could debate that, but it definitely happened. My next segment is arts, music, and entertainment. And like the last one, I've just picked a highlight from each. I know I'm going relatively light this episode, but guys, I was in Greece recently, coincidentally, on the Ionian Sea, the Aegean Sea, seeing all this stuff live, researching for the episode. No, not really, but I was just having a good time. So I didn't have as much time to research. So I've just pulled a few highlights out. And for arts, I thought we couldn't not talk about the gold craftsmanship. Gold's come up so often. And Thracian metalwork was some of the best in all of Europe. They did a lot of incredible like finesse around their metalwork that other cultures just didn't do. And archaeologists have found in tombs that they weren't just showing off these gold as wealth. Like, look how wealthy I am, kind of thing. Kings weren't just doing that. But the gold, almost like it told a story, a visual story that kind of showed the king's authority came from God. So it's this this divine right to rule was sort of buried alongside them in gold. Like the story is in gold, which is quite amazing. And there were gold wreaths, there were death masks, there were horse trappings, which is basically like how you dress a horse, all the stuff you put on a horse. Don't know why it's called trappings. I'm not an equestrian or whatever, but that's what it's called, you know. And they would bury them with them, I guess, because of the horse culture we talked about, right? They had a lot of them.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
There you go. Hi, this is Seb from editing, asking you to leave a 5-star review or a like wherever you are listening. It makes such a big difference. I don't ask because it's fun. It's actually kind of cringe, but we're not a big studio. We're not a big production studio, and it just makes such a big difference to help us get seen, help us get known. We are very tiny, as you can see. On YouTube, though, we're actually getting close to 1,000 subscribers. We've got 950 or so right now, and if you're not subscribed, which apparently most of our viewers are not, it would make such a big difference if you do, guys. Help us get over that line. It'll be fantastic. Gives us that motivation to keep going. Speaking of keep going, back to the podcast. And in terms of their entertainment, hunting was the highlight here, I think, in my opinion. It's pretty significant. In many ways, it was used as like a rehearsal for war. So they hunted boar and they hunted deer, but they also hunted bears, not to eat, but just to show off for prestige, to show off their strength, their bravery, their physical prowess. I will just remind, by the way, in case anyone's lost what timeline we're in, we are in the ancient world. We're not talking like rifle hunting where it's easy, you know. We're talking, you know.
Well, it's interesting because it's also still that there's still kind of examples of people doing that now. I don't think they still do it now. I don't know, but the Maasai always did lion hunting with spears only. And that's how you became a man. So it's similar. It's similar things that even till kind of more modern days. So it's some a practice that's lived on.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and so these lot would have big feasts afterwards, and they would tell the story of how they did it, and there'd be big contests of strength, and they'd be bragging, and people would be like, oh, but I did this when I was your age, I did this, da da da, because you see, Thracian prestige and social status was all around how many enemies you'd killed, right? And this is in
and
contrast...
not too distinct from the Aztecs.
Yeah, it's true. This is in contrast to the Greeks, who preferred, in their own words, they preferred witty conversation at these kinds of events. They liked dialogue and chat, whereas Thracians were like slamming tables, being like, "No, I am strongest," and then they would be like arm wrestle and all this stuff, you know, roughhousing, as you could say. And finally, music. So the highlight for music was really the fact that apparently it was less for entertainment, and again, more of that sacred religious connection. And the instruments they used, I might pronounce this wrong, but one of them is the lyre, which I'll put up here on...
That's correct,
Is that how you say it? Awesome. I'll put up on screen for those of you who are watching. And it's essentially like a U-shaped string instrument. On the left, I actually have the instrument, and on the right, I have like some pottery of someone playing it, you know, from the time. And this again is also seen in Greek culture as well. So they had the lyre, and they also used flutes, and they were used in rituals and even common folk. Because I know we've talked a lot about nobles here, but it just isn't that much about the common folk. So I was quite interested to see this part. Look, even the common folk, they would take part in the dances, they'd take part in the songs, which were tied to like fertility rituals, cycles of nature rituals. And yeah, there you go. So I don't know what kind of tunes. It wasn't quite drum and bass, but it was, you know, it's all right.
I'm almost, because again, in my head, I'm imagining that kind of classic medieval music, but I'm imagining it to be so different because that's still lyres and flutes is quite common in that.
Yeah.
But that's kind of, you know, so long afterwards, I can imagine it would be very different, but maybe not. I mean,
You know?
There's only so much you can do with if it's just a lyre and a flute and the same instruments.
Maybe that's why they didn't see it
Yeah.
as entertainment. Maybe because it just wasn't so readily available. So when it did come out, you knew like this was the serious stuff, it's religious stuff.
Yeah.
But it must have been fun if everyone's singing and dancing. So some things never change, eh?
Yeah. On screen now, this is the general layout of a burial mound. It can be different. They're not all the same, but the general layout is a long entrance corridor leading to at least 2 chambers, an antechamber and a main burial chamber, which is often circular with a domed roof. So we can see this one actually has 3 rooms. Again, it's nothing. It's not a standard, but there is a relative consistency with it. I know that this one is. I can't remember the name of this specific burial mound, but this is a specific one, and this is a particularly long entrance tunnel.
I was gonna say that is so long. Why is it so long?
Yeah.
Is it meant to like symbolize going to the afterlife or something? You know, like a long journey.
To be honest, some of them are shorter. I don't.
Okay.
I think it's just where it's been done, the nature of the person,
Grandeur.
and also again, some of it might be. Yeah, exactly. Some of it's lost to history. It might just be it's the bigger it is, the better it is. It has 2 antechambers, so it's a more important person.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. Right. So this is the kind of crazy bit. It's theorized that there are over 15,000 tombs in the kind of the region where Thrace was.
Wow.
But only 300 or so have been researched, and there are a lot that are believed to have kind of been looted over like the many years, because obviously they've existed for.
Yeah, that happens everywhere. It's unfortunate.
Yeah,
like Egypt
I
and
mean,
the pyramids and stuff.
exactly, but not even with modern. You're talking about modern days. They've been around obviously since sometimes 5th century BCE.
Yeah.
There's 2,500 years where people can nick stuff.
Yeah.
and again because they what they are is all of this bit is underground, but you'll still see a big mound on the top. And so if someone sees a big mound, they'll go, there's probably something under that big mound. It looks very man-made.
Yeah, 500 years later, 1,000 years later, yeah. It's just,
There's no respect anymore for what that is. And then again, what then might drive people a lot further is we've discovered some full of amazing treasures. So if people have found other ones
and they
full of
heard
amazing
rumors
treasures,
about gold being
they will
buried with
go.
them.
They're gonna hunt them out. So one example is nicknamed the Lord of Sakar. And
that's a gold wreath, right? I mentioned in my part, yeah.
So yeah, he's kind of one of the ones theorized he might be one of the richest men in Thrace. So he had loads of amazing things. But one of this is this wreath that was found on his head, like on his skull, that was when it was
That's such
when they discovered him.
Fine, like metal work there. You know, it's like paper thin. That's crazy.
I know, it's incredibly impressive. I couldn't imagine how difficult that was to move without destroying it. That's absolutely incredible.
Wow.
So he was also found, by the way, with his warhorse, and which, as well as dogs, are often commonly found in tombs having been sacrificed as well. So again, it was one of those other things to come with you to the afterlife. So they were really close with their horses and their dogs. So it was quite often, again, that your wife, your dog, your horse, come with you to the afterlife.
You know, we're talking with this episode is obviously focused around the average person, so I can't help but think, I wonder how did commoners feel about this? You know, this kind of stuff. It's like, because if they really believe these things, are commoners just sitting there being like, well, when I die, I'm screwed. Because I won't have a horse and I won't have any gold with me.
The thing is that they don't have stuff with them in the normal life, so it might be. And again, these might have also been created more as a show rather than. Although I will say that concept of afterlife and bringing stuff with you has existed before them, and we know the Egyptians are really
loads of cultures do it. Loads of cultures.
So exactly.
Don't the Norse do it as well? Like
yeah. I don't know for sure.
I'm not sure. Don't quote me.
I know the Egyptians did. I mean, that's the concept of the pyramids. Even in death, you want to show off your wealth and power. Like, come on now.
Even in death, I'm still rich.
So we'll finish on the final thing is we were setting this beautiful image on Reddit by someone who's following the show, saying this is where he recently went to a Thracian tomb. So you can see actually in this image, it's quite interesting because you can see this is from inside the tomb and you can see the corridor going
long,
out.
Isn't it? Yeah.
But this is also not as long as the one I showed. If I go kind of back to it, you can see quite how long that one is. that I think as well, it's got a scale. I think that one was about 25, 30 meters.
Wow.
And if you go to this one, you can see it's long, but not quite as long.
Yeah, so the guy on Reddit, he was saying, so this is a tourist location in Bulgaria. You can go and visit it yourself, and he took this picture and he mentioned that on those sort of heads there on the door. So for listeners, basically just looking like a door which is quite ornate. Like it's not just a plain door. It's got like cool bumps and stuff on it, and the doors are open and you can see this long corridor and there's a tourist walking in the middle ruining the photo and all the way to
whenever your tourist sites though you can't
can't not. And there's like lights, obviously modern day, like they put lights in there so you can see along it. And he mentioned that if you looked closely on the door you could still see red pigment from the days when it was burial site. I'm not sure if you can make it out in the photo, but maybe that's what that kind of grimy looking part is. Maybe that's like faded red paint. But it also,
by the way, it looks like a Medusa head on the right.
I think it is, because he did say Medusa. I think he did, but I couldn't remember with certainty, so I didn't want to say it.
The one on the left doesn't, but the one on the right does look like snakes. And obviously, it does again. It's that tie-in between Greek and Thracian overlapping.
It's interesting. Like, why did they put Medusa on the doors of their things? Who knows? But yeah. So
but again, that's the doors facing outwards. So maybe it's just it's almost like you put Medusa's head to ward off people coming and breaking into your tomb.
But one of the other things I think is interesting in this picture, which I didn't think was interesting at all until you were just talking about the burials, is that there's this like industrial pipe thing in there, right? And clearly it's because there's not enough airflow in here, and maybe the air don't need to, the dead don't need to breathe, but tourists do. Tourists do. So these lot have put like this long sort of, I guess, aircon in there. I don't know, something like that. And now I'm thinking it's because you said these chambers are so long that there is a danger of there just not being enough like fresh air in there. So I just thought that was an interesting.
Yeah, it's all underground. It's all buried. Let's say burial mounds.
So super thanks to the guy who sent that in. But continue.
So I want to talk about a place called Seuthopolis.
Seuthopolis. Okay, so for new people new to the show, bonus topics are things we haven't discussed in advance, and we just show up to surprise each other.
And can sometimes involve things in modern day, not necessarily.
Yeah, it's
all
like loosely connected.
History.
It's like for fun, fun little bonus. If you're still listening this far, we appreciate you greatly. Please drop a like on the video, 5-star review wherever you're listening. It really helps out. It's the best thing you can do for us right now. As you can see, we're tiny and it helps unbelievably. Thank you.
And anything you like, don't like, send us a comment. We always look at them. We always read them, and we always reply. Well, I don't reply. Seb does.
Yeah, I reply to every single one. But if you want to get a reply from him, I'll call him over. He can come reply.
Seuthopolis. So this was established by King Seuthes III. So if you remember in the last episode, I talked about the Odrysian kingdom reforming for 30 more years under a single king after the death of Alexander the Great.
I remember, yeah. So this is the Diocletian periods kind of thing, yeah.
Exactly. So this is that king, King Seuthes III. And Seuthopolis was the capital of the last iteration of the Odrysian kingdom. So I've got on screen here, this is kind of a picture of what we think the city would have looked like back then based upon the what we have discovered. And most of the space within the city was actually not homes. It was actually official structures. The majority of the people will be living outside of the city walls. So we see that it's kind of like it'll be more like temple. Obviously, King Seuthes himself would live in the city, and other nobles would live in the city, but a lot more of it be kind of like temples, administrative buildings.
This thing looks super. It looks. I mean, not that we can see it very much, but from what we can make out, it looks super Greek. I guess that's because of the Macedonian conquest and control.
And if you think about what period we are, we're quite late into kind of Thrace. We've gone past the original Odrysian kingdom. We've kind of the influence from kind of Athens is really heavy.
We're not far from Roman Empire times at this point. Really.
No, not at all. So about 40 years after its creation, it was actually sacked by the Celts, and kind of not long after that, it stopped being an important settlement. And again, as you said, it was only the Odrysian kingdom was only alive for 30 more years with King Seuthes. So it was 10 years after his death that it got sacked, and then its importance waned again. The Odrysian kingdom fell. It went more back to that tribal state.
Okay.
But then I want to go over to the modern day. So it was actually Seuthopolis was actually discovered in 1948 during the construction of the Koprinka Reservoir in the center of Bulgaria, which is where this city is.
Okay.
And despite this, they continue construction, flooding the site under 20 meters of water.
Oh no! What are you guys doing over there?
You have to
Come
understand,
on.
it's 1948, just past World War II here.
That's no excuse, man.
I know.
Everything after
I
World War
know.
II is kind of the modern era, and
Yeah,
the age of archaeology where you use dynamite to excavate is long over. Come on, man.
But they literally, they had architects, they had archaeologists who discovered this because they did it, and they just went, now we've gone too far, carry on.
Oh no.
So I want to go now into even more modern. So I'm going to go to the next picture.
Oh, you know what? Actually, Rob, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. We're about to go to your next picture. And I don't even know if I should include this in the episode, but maybe I will. Do you remember when we were going through that heat with I was telling you with the Balkans and the genetic discussion?
Yeah.
We discovered that in 1900, turns out there was like some bad activity that the Bulgarians did, like to genetic, like ethnic Thracians, and basically, let's just call it expulsion. Maybe they just don't really care that much about Thracian background. Maybe they were just like, oh, screw,
Maybe then, yeah, because obviously it's again not a huge amount of distance past then potentially. So this is an image from 2005, of which it was a Bulgarian architect proposed a project to uncover, preserve, and reconstruct the city of Seuthopolis by means of a dam wall. As you can see, there's a dam wall surrounding the ruins, like a circular dam wall.
That's
surrounding
amazing.
the ruins, and then they pump out the water, and it would enable it to become a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
So this is a theory, yeah, not like as in
No,
have they started doing this?
These actual no. So they are. Let's put it this way. So they are trying to raise funds to create a dike around it, and there's a whole project around it. So they can pump out the water.
Good.
I'm fingers crossed. I would love this to happen. I would love to visit. I would love to visit this. By the way, I saw the estimates where it was about 50 million euros, which actually, in the grand scheme of things, for a country.
Yeah, and with the tourism you'll pull in for something awesome like that, it's part of your heritage. Oh, not heritage. Damn it! I broke the rule again. It's part of the lands, the heritage of the lands. Not genetics. We're not going into that. Never again. Right. Next. So my bonus topic, I've kind of been hinting towards it the entire episode. I opened the whole episode with it, and it's a question. And it's a question for you, and it's a question for our audience. Were the Thracians the barbarians that the Greeks saw them as? We've talked about it last episode. It came up. We talked about it this episode. I thought it might be nice to see if we can settle the debate. Now, of course, it's subjective. Of course, we only know so much. Of course, it depends on your definition of barbarian, yada, yada, yada. But none of that's fun. Let's make assertions. Let's go for it. Rob, ladies first.
So what I would say is that I think that if you use the Greek society as the benchmark, yes, they're barbarians.
Now, using your society, your what you want. What do you think?
But it's also everything's relative to the period, so you can't. If you look at today, yes, they're barbarians. Yeah. If these people existed right now, they'd be barbarians.
Compared to the time,
we have to use yes. So that's what I'm saying. Their closest neighbor is the Greeks, so I'm going with yes because comparatively to their nearest neighbor of the Greeks, and the Persians as well. I'd also throw the Persians in there. Scythians, I'd say, are more similar, but I was going to go with yes.
And Macedon as well is nearby. Although Macedon was considered a backwater by the Greeks, so they're not always right, because that clearly turned out to be something that surprised them, caught them off guard. But okay, I actually thought.
What's your thoughts?
I thought you were going to say they weren't barbarians, because you were kind of like you were leaning that way in the last episode, and I thought you were going to keep pushing that trend. Yeah, I think they're totally barbarians, bro. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Like, I know you could do some incredible artwork, and in terms of your
their gold treasures are incredible. Wow. Yeah,
amazing. But other than that, I mean, come on, they're drinking undiluted wine, getting sloshed, and claiming it's for the gods. They're fighting all the time. You can't have a feast without an arm wrestle. Your people are talking about all these sort of I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. And also, this is going to be we're really teasing the line with this episode a lot, and we're
Yeah.
risking getting in trouble over and over again. But I'm gonna say it, man. I'm gonna say it. If you're still tribal, I think you're behind. I know.
Mm.
Like maybe some people nowadays would tell me I'm wrong, and you can't judge a society, and there are probably some things about tribal life which is better than people prefer that life, whatever. But I think there's a reason why people across the whole world gradually moved away from tribal settings and more towards that state setting,
Yeah.
that bureaucracy,
No, I agree.
that management,
I
that
agree.
tax, that kind of thing.
Okay, by the way, can I throw in something completely completely random now?
Yeah.
Which
Go.
is we talked in the last episode about the Peltas, the shield, which is the Thracian
Yeah, the one in the
image.
background of our thing right now. Yeah.
I actually looked up why it was that shape, and I actually have the real answer.
Was it not what we thought with the spears going in the top?
It's not. It's actually
Okay.
not.
What is it?
So actually, what it is you would have the shield angled so your hand. So say you have a sword in this hand, a shield in the other hand. It was allowed you to give that swing motion, so that you could swing, and you have this little cut in, so you have extra mobility to swing. So you have it sideways. So the circle, the semicircle, it would be side on towards your sword hand.
I see. So you go more
side
inwards
swing.
before you caught the shield. Yeah, that
Exactly.
does make sense. That does make
Yeah.
sense. A little bit less
So
protection from arrows, but
Yeah.
makes sense.
But yeah, little tidbit at the end there. Just wanted to.
I love that. I
tell
love
you
that
about
correction. And while we're going in the corrections, for those of you who are listening only and weren't watching, I did put a correction on the screen around. Well, not a correction. We asked the question, why was it called the Odrysian Kingdom? And we couldn't answer it live, so I edited it over the top. For those of you who missed that text, it's because a tribe was the Odrysian tribe. They were the ones who unified all the tribes, and therefore it was the Odrysian kingdom, and they were called the Odrysian tribe because their first king was Odrys. So yeah, there's that. We're corrections and apologies all over the place, mate. But don't worry, at this stage of the episode, only the real ones are still here. Guys, we love you. If you haven't already, drop a like on the video and a comment, and I really, really appreciate it. Or, of course, if you're listening, so on Apple or Spotify or wherever, a 5-star review goes a long way. Now, the moment we've all been waiting for, the moment all this conversation has been leading up to, it is the tier list placement. So, how does this work for newcomers? Effectively, I want you to imagine that some very powerful god plucks you from this existence and throws you back through time. You're flying through the dimensions, time and space, and you're going to land somewhere and be a random person. So you're not you. You could take the life of a random person in this time period. And the question is, would you want to live here? Or would you much rather live somewhere else? And we're going to do it in a fun little tier list way. We're at the very top. We've got S tier, which is pretty great. A tier, which is surprisingly okay. B tier, which is high roller. Like, if you're lucky, it's a good life. C tier, tolerable if lucky. So, it's never going to be good, but you might get by. D tier, guaranteed bad time. And F tier, please God, no. This is the worst of the worst. And in F tier, we have Aztecs from AoE 3, which is the very end of the Aztec Empire. This is after Spanish contact. This is smallpox era, destruction of everything. That's why it's in Please God No. It's the worst.
You were a king, you were a peasant. There's no one having a good time there.
Absolutely, yeah. But in contrast to that, the AoE 2 Aztecs, which is just before that, which is just the beginning of Spanish contact and the entire Aztec timeline, is actually in the opposite, and S tier pretty great, and that's Rob insisted. But if you want to help me bring that down, let us know.
I've been backed up by some people. There are some people saying I'd rather live in that kind of
actually surprised. I was surprised. Some people did say they'd rather live there than anywhere else. So it's true. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's pretty great. But if you want to know more about the reasoning there, go check out our Aztec series. I think we got 4 episodes on that, which is really a lot of fun. So today, though, we are placing the Thracians. And Rob, as I said earlier, ladies first. What do you think?
All right. Okay. Should we start at the bottom, which is it's not Please God No. There is positivity.
No. It's not as bad as that Aztec time period. No way.
Okay. Guaranteed bad time and tolerable if lucky. I'm tossing between these two right now, if I'm honest with you.
Okay. So,
and
go on.
And my only kind of thing I'm a little bit struggling with is it's really hard to find out about what the normal person lives like. Every else we found out about the normal people. We found so much more about nobles compared to how the average person lived that I am struggling more which is almost why in my head I'm like, well, it's horrible if lucky because it might be okay if you're a noble. It seems like you have a decent life, although decent life, but it doesn't seem to be ever a good life for a woman in this Thracians.
Yeah. I get that
There's
vibe too.
no. I mean, that's already 50% bad time here.
Well,
that's already 50%.
I was thinking that. That's why I said earlier when you talk about the burials and stuff, and you surprised me when you said that these women apparently want to be the chosen ones, and I'm like, wait, if you don't know that it's fake, does that mean that it's actually a good thing? You know what I mean? It's like ignorance is bliss.
If you think you'll be immortalized and go with them to their idea of the afterlife, and you'll live forever in this paradise. I mean, you can see why people would go. You are then chosen. You get to experience that.
I still think that sucks, bro. Yeah, so I'm not going to do that. The question is, on DT, the one we have already is the Japanese mythos. It was, if you missed it, it was a fun little bonus one to celebrate Asian mythology's new DLC. And essentially, it was like, what if the Japanese mythology was real? Would you want to live there? And we decided, at least from what we've discovered so far, there's more to review, but it's probably a guaranteed bad time. Is it worse than that, though?
But that's the thing is, I don't think it is, but I also don't think it's as good as House of Lancaster. So I'm tossing between. I think it's between those. But where do we sit it in? Is it C or is it D? So that's the bit where I'm struggling with.
So I'm with you there, and I was thinking. So House of Lancaster, obviously, recap very first episodes. Obviously, this is like 100 Years War with France. This is Wars of the Roses, civil war in your own country. It's pretty bleak. I do think this was there was some Black Death during this time as well. The plague.
A little bit.
Yeah, so it wasn't great, but we put it in tolerable if lucky because you weren't always exposed to that stuff. And
there was long periods without war still. Yeah. It was a long period of history we were doing them, which there was a huge. Again, we're doing even a longer period of history here.
Yeah, it's a massive period of history. That's what makes it so hard to place. Yeah. I'll put it like this. Yeah, in my opinion, it's tolerable if lucky, and the reason for that,
I was leaning that way as well.
Is because maybe it's because we don't know as much about it, so I have this sort of bias into thinking that it's like a peaceful life, maybe. But like these tribes, I'm sure there was a lot of war, like so much war in this time period.
I mean, as I said, there was raiding between tribes when there was no Odrysian kingdom.
The raiding. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good point. I guess I just wonder.
People were selling their daughters into marriage with nobles.
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking like the average like villager of like in a tribe that's like. Not the main, like off to the side tribes, like maybe you could just live a quiet life as a villager somewhere. Maybe not.
I think, but potentially, but again, that's why it is the tolerable of lucky. Because if you were, again, quite a lot of things. If you were born a man, if you were born into some period, it probably was quite a lot of periods where it was fine. Which is why, again, I'm leaning tolerable of lucky rather than guaranteed bad time. I don't think it's guaranteed. But I think it's a high probability.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah. Hold on. I'm not sure about that. The more I think about it, I mean, it's also the ancient era. Things just sucked back then, man. Yeah, you have gold cups to drink from, but like everything else sucks. I'm just wondering, can you live that peaceful life on your horse?
With the heavy aristocracy as well, because it's even then it's like the nobles have a lot of power over the people. Again, the warriors were highly respected though. So, and again, it's the smaller class.
I think because I think about their contact with the Scythians, they were friendly, but not at the beginning and not the whole time. They were at war. Even the Celts were at war, as you pointed out. And later they were friendly. I just think this place was getting smashed by everyone around them at some point. The Persians, the Macedonian, this kind of stuff. I guess I just wonder, even though they clearly adapted and thrived and their culture lived on, which is a sign that maybe it wasn't that bad. But then I think what finalizes it for me personally is when you pointed out that the tribes even raid each other. And I'm just like, if you can't
we don't know. We have evidence they might have done. It's not a true we do or don't know.
But in my opinion,
they raided. We know they raided, and if you were in the center of the Odrysian, like of kind of Thrace, you're not going to go like 100 miles to raid. You're going to go to your nearest neighbor instead.
I just think I think it's true. I think it's true because if you were so tight that you weren't raiding, you probably wouldn't be two separate tribes. Like you would have been,
Yeah,
you wouldn't
yeah,
have had to make a confederation of tribes that were always
yep.
arguing about who was in power. These kinds of people are always at each other's throats.
And you know that probably even when they're in the Confederation tribes, there's probably still a bit of
Backstabbing,
shenanigans happening.
yeah, nah, they're guaranteed bad time, bro. Take them down to
Alright.
D tier. I think above Japanese
Above
mythos.
Japanese.
Yeah, because in Japanese mythos, man, you're getting tsunamis every time a god gets angry. You know, so yeah, let's put Thracians at the top of D tier. I'm happy with that placement.